Dustin Jones, what's up, man?
DJ, my man. Thank you for inviting me up, dude.
Man, thanks for coming on, dude.
Yeah.
So, you guys have been around a while.
Yeah.
I was into the whole mud riding thing when they first started, when Mud Nationals first started.
Oh, yeah.
And I was young, dude. I was probably 11 or 12, I think.
In the good old days.
And we'd tear up 304 tracks, every
Bro,
weekend.
that's all they had back then was 300. That was the big dog back then.
Oh, I remember when the 450 come out, it was over with the electronic switch and all that.
Man, we had buddies that had them when they was rich. They was in high cotton if they had the 454.
Yeah, my buddy had one. They had some money. I'd go over there and
had some money. No, we started way back then, dude. I don't even know, 06, 07 is kind of when we were going to Mud Nationals, and then we started my business in 2011. And
man, I know some people that know you, but I haven't, and I've never been kind of tied up in the space, and I haven't really messed with, really since the side-by-sides started coming out, I really hadn't messed with the rides anymore. I guess kind of grew out of it and I got into motorcycles.
Grew out of it?
I got into motorcycles, man. I got into, I did all that before I got to, drinking age.
Yeah. Then you started drinking and getting on two wheels.
Yeah. Instead of doing it on four wheels,
That's
right?
a good idea.
Yeah, exactly, right? And I got into that, and then now I don't ride anything hardly, man. I just the vehicles stay in a box now.
And think about what we do, because we came from mud riding on quads, ATVs, basically hunting four wheelers is where it started.
Yeah.
But that's such a niche thing that it doesn't surprise me that we didn't cross paths because in the South, bro, it's sportsman's paradise. So it's mud riding for me, it's fishing for some people, it's street bikes, it's boats, it's Harley sports cars. Yep. And so what we do is kind of a real niche thing. We specialize in all off-road racing, mud riding, and stuff like that. And the space is so big down here with all the activities that you can do in Louisiana, because we kind of got good weather year round. If you don't mind 100% humidity and 100 degrees, we got good weather.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
We got good weather year round. So it kind of spreads everybody out. But, you think a small town like this, we'd cross paths. We might have fought each other once or twice.
Man, ain't no telling. I don't know. How old are you?
69.
Yeah, okay.
69 for life.
No, man, I don't. I'm 34, so I don't know what the age difference is. But yeah, man, I've been into it. Like I said, I was into it, and it's funny because I slowly moved from mud riding to I got a Suzuki Z400.
Oh,
and I was watching Doug Gust, and I was into the quad racing, and so people riding motocross, and I would go do we do the quad stuff. That was fun for a little while too, man. But you're doing the Baja shit, man.
Dude,
let's talk about it. First off, being from here, you have to be the only guy ever from here to do this shit.
For sure. There's not many people that drive as far as we do to do the racing that we do. So we went from mud riding, and we did mud racing for a few years, and we were really successful at that. Me and one of my buddies traveled the country mud race. When I say country, I mean mainly the South,
right?
Louisiana, Texas, Mississippi, Arkansas, where all the big mud racing was. And so we did that for 2 or 3 years, and then we transitioned straight into full-blown West Coast desert racing from right here in Louisiana.
That's so crazy to think about.
Dude.
First off, how do you go from the mud stuff? It's completely different terrain.
Yeah.
The drag's different. The gears are different. The tires are different.
Set up.
The suspension's different. How in the hell do you figure that out?
Dude, you don't, man. We figured it out on levees.
What made you want to, though?
I think... I've always been kind of around racing. So, my dad dirt tracked whenever I was little.
So did mine.
And so that was kind of in our blood a little bit. And we grew up with not much money, so we couldn't afford to race. But if you remember in Dubberly, they had a little flat track out there. So we used to have Yamaha Warriors. We would ratchet strap the suspension down because we couldn't afford a drop kit. We would put golf cart tires on the rear because we couldn't afford Hoosiers. Yeah. And we would go race out there on the weekends. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. So I grew up in, my family's from Sibley.
Yeah, so you're right there beside that little track.
Yeah.
And so that's where we kind of tested the waters when we were young, but we got dogged out every weekend we went, dude. We just didn't have the money to do it. But I've always been real competitive and into that. And so... then we kind of started dabbling in racing a little bit, and it went kind of right when we opened our company in 2011. About a year in, we kind of opened a race team, just because it was that natural progression of you have a company in this business, and everybody knows you win on Sunday, sell on Monday. So we're like, you know what, we should start racing and kind of showing off our products that we're building here.
And that was all mud stuff then.
All mud stuff then is what it is.
And you guys were the name. Like you were the name. Like
just because I think it was because we were the wildest.
Yeah, we would go to those events and like, oh man, look at those dudes shit. Like we had our little. I think I got a Wolverine when they came out with the new model, and I had it decked out, but I wasn't nothing like what y'all were doing, you know.
But I think it was just at that time because that's what we put all of our efforts into was mud riding and off road, and so everybody knew when we showed up it was going to be the wildest show. Like we were willing to tear everything up. Because it's what we did for a living. So we would tear them up on those rides on the weekends. And then Monday through Friday, we're fixing all of our stuff, fixing everybody else's stuff. So like with somebody like you that goes out there for fun and wants to ride, you don't want to tear your stuff up.
No.
You don't want to break stuff.
Yeah.
We did not tear it up.
You're trying to tear shit up.
We had everything we owned tore up by midday, work on it all night, and get up the next morning and do it again. Yeah. So people kind of early on found out about us we was wild and we was going to tear some stuff up. And honestly, that's been my career in racing. People know me for checkers or wreckers, or they say win or wad. They know I'm going to win or I'm going to crash everything.
Garage sale.
Dude, I'm going to yard sale.
Yard sale. Yeah, that's what I mean. Yard sale.
Whole thing. Yeah. And that's what people knew us for. So it really built our name a little faster because we were just so wild, you know?
Yeah. Well, how did you get into working on them? Like, how did that even happen?
See, that's it's a crazy thing. That started at a young age, and never did I foresee that my future was going to be in this industry doing this, because when we were young, you know, my dad worked all the time, but he did teach us at a very early age mechanical skills. And so he taught us how to work on things. So since we couldn't afford to go buy anything new, we had to fix everything we had. So I remember being 5, 6 years old, and we had a Yamaha PW50 2-stroke dirt bike. Okay. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
It was no gears. It was
a little bit just get on and go.
Bro, just get on in and give it gas.
Mix your gas up in there. Yeah.
Mix gas. And so it would foul plugs all the time.
Yeah.
And the carburetor would get dirty. Well, I remember at 5, 6, 7 years old, my dad would make us stand beside him and clean the carburetor or clean the spark plugs. And so if we like kind of wandered off playing with the dogs or playing, he would stop working on it. Well, we realized like if we want to ride something, we can't go buy it. We have to fix it ourselves. So my dad taught us that early, and he would make us work on vehicles with him in the garage because that's all he had to get to work. And so if he didn't fix it that night, he couldn't go to work the next morning.
Right.
But he wouldn't let us sit inside and play on iPads and play games.
Right, yeah.
At that time, I was like, man, why would Dad make us work all the time? Every time he's home, we have to work. Now, looking back, it literally built my entire career, and what is my racing legacy is my dad making us learn how to do that.
Yeah.
So as we got a little older, we would buy crappy four-wheelers, fix them up because we knew how to work on them, sell them for a little more than we bought them for, and buy a nicer one. And we just did that time and time again until we had nice stuff eventually.
It snowballed into what you have.
And then fast forward 20 years, now I've got a business doing that. And we build custom cars and fix people's tore up stuff all the time. And
you're building stuff. It's just so funny because I've seen you from afar grow. And like I said, I haven't touched. I'm glad you're here because I haven't really touched the industry in so long, like, or even been there.
Yeah.
Like at a ride or anything in probably over 10 years. God. So it's like, I know it's changed a lot, you know, but it's just cool to see you guys. I'm sure you work on people's stuff all over the country.
Yeah,
we
do now. We do now.
Like before, it was probably just around here. You know, the high rollers around here.
It was, man. It was when oil was so good.
Yeah. People, it was like 07, 08, 09, yeah.
Bro, people were spending money building whatever, and there was no budget. These guys would bring stacks of $100 bills in to pay for these rigs that we were building. At that time, we were building $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 rigs on top of the purchase of the vehicle.
Yeah.
And at that time in 2011, 12, 13, I was like, dude, where are people getting money like this? And so, you know, that's kind of where we broke into the market, which was good for us. We were early to market in the side-by-sides because they released the most popular side-by-side, the Razor. They released it in 2008, 9.
Yeah.
In 2011, we opened when they released the brand new Razor 900. So
got you.
Just coincidentally, we came to market at a good time, and it freaking exploded for us. And so
the Razor's interesting because which you're Can-Am now, you're right.
All Can-Am.
Yeah.
All Can-Am.
The Razor's interesting though because that changed the dynamic.
It absolutely did.
You know, that model of, you know, side by side, because at first it was just like the mule.
Yes.
And then you had the what was it before that?
The Rhino was around, the Gator.
What was the John Deere thing?
Yeah, the John Deere Gator.
That started it, right? And then it was like it was, you know, slow and clunky.
Yes.
And then you had the Rhino and the mule that come out, and then And then when the players come out, it was just like, okay, this is different.
Yeah, you know? and they still kind of viewed them as like golf carts, like old people rigs. But like we would take them and put lift kits on them and big tires, and they would freaking absolutely blow people's minds because they were imagining those gators or those mules. Well, we would take them in 4 foot of water, snorkeled up to the roof, and like it would go. And so immediately people were like, "What are these things?" So man, that helped us catch fire really in business. Is going out there and doing that kind of thing.
Well, what about Can-Am, dude? Because Can-Am came on the scene and just dominated the market, dude.
Yeah,
I mean, how's it running their stuff now? And I mean, what do you like about it?
You know what's cool is we always say, me and Malcolm Sneed, the guy that I own S3 with, we always say we were Can-Am when Can-Am wasn't cool.
Okay.
And so 2006, Can-Am dropped their bad to the bone quad, the Outlander 800. And that was right when like Gorilla was big in the market. They had the race team. It was the biggest CC 4-wheel drive you get. It's bad to the bone, just slaughtering everybody. Well, then just a couple years later, they released their Commander side-by-side that was just like kind of okay. Then they released the regular Maverick, and that's when we started racing them, was when it was like the Razor 1000 was out and the Maverick was out, and so it wasn't that competitive. Well, it was just 2 years later after we signed our contracts that they released the Can-Am X3, which is like what everybody considers the big dog now. And so we got to see that quick transition from like we're kind of racing from a deficit to we had the baddest car on the market. It was like the Bugatti of side-by-sides. Even to this day, it's been 5 years and it's still the baddest side-by-side.
Is that what most people run?
Oh, for sure.
So and like you're running the limited. What, you just finished the Mint 400?
Yeah, we just finished that.
Yeah.
But we run like the highest level, like the pro turbo class. Yeah. We run the pro. So it's there's some other entry-level classes and like stock class and sportsmen, but we run like the upper echelon class in the off-road racing. And when I say off-road racing, it's like anywhere from 4 to like 10 hours of racing.
Yeah. Long race.
How
does that work? Where do you piss it? On yourself, bro?
Everybody asks me that question. I just tell everybody, it depends on how bad you want to win.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So for us, we just piss on ourselves.
Yeah.
And
hey.
There's no stopping and getting out of the car.
He was like, what?
No, that it's true. But nowadays, like they have what's called a condom catheter is what we use.
Okay.
We didn't know about that early on. So we would just literally, it was like, are we willing to stop and get out and piss?
Yeah, it's not worth it if you're trying to win. I mean,
so you just piss on yourself.
Yeah, I mean, you're already covered in dirt and sand and sweating your ass off.
Piss,
and whatever. I guess.
So now they make condom catheters that roll on just like a condom. They have a tube that runs down your leg. And so you just piss on the floorboard. It runs out of the car.
Yeah.
The worst thing is, like, when I was staging up for the Baja 500, which is super long race, that's going to be like a 16-hour race.
Where's that one at? Is that in Vegas?
No, it's in Baja, Mexico.
Yeah.
It's down in the Baja Peninsula.
Yeah.
And so pulling up to staging, you always get those nervous jitters right before a race or anything competitive. Baseball game, you're like, man, I got to piss. I got the nervous squirts. Like, I got to run to the bathroom and dump this off right quick. So every time we pull up to the line, it's my co-driver's like, man, go ahead and get a drink and go ahead and take a piss before we get racing, because peeing and racing is really tough. Like, you think it'd be easy to just piss on yourself. It's not.
No.
Dude, your bladder's in a bind. It's hard to get it out. So every time we pull up to the line, it's like, go ahead and take a drink and go ahead and piss, because it's fixing to be a 8-hour, 10-hour fist fight. And so pulling up to the line of the Baja 1000, this was just a couple of years ago. I was driving for Monster Energy, pulling up, all clean, car spotless, fixing to take the green flag. We have like a minute and a half left. I was like, let me just pee. Well, I feel the condom catheter start swelling, and I realized I was sitting on the tube and had it full kinked off. So like the condom catheter swells. Boom! Right at the starting line of a 10-hour race, I piss all over myself, and I'm like, dude, this is not the way. This is not the way to start. So yes, we do have a plan for going to the bathroom when we're in the race car for that long, but sometimes it does go awry.
How'd you end up finishing on that?
Oh, yeah, I ended up crashing the car on that one. That was one but maybe it was the early exit that I needed, so I had piss all over me, and so 150 miles in, I crashed the car.
Yeah. Dang, man.
Is not uncommon for me. What's funny, and what I've always told, like, the guys that race under my racing umbrella is, if you can't win, you have to be memorable. So when you look at me, like, everybody knows I have a mullet.
Yeah.
That I wear blue jean shorts that everybody knows is I wear jorts all the time. So like I have this style that I carry around because I'm a pretty basic looking, blonde headed, blue eyed white dude. And so I have to do something that kind of sets me apart.
Yeah.
And I always tell the guys that I work with or that I train, you have to be memorable. So be wild, be fast, but be memorable. And so I learned that early on in mud racing, and I had a career. One season I went completely undefeated.
How did mud racing work? Because they would always have the mud races.
Yeah.
But by then we were off trail riding, and I never really hung out, and so I don't know what's the process on that. Like, what's the distance and how does all that work?
So the mud racing is set up in like a oval pit that's about 2 to 4 foot of water.
Okay.
And so sometimes you're running fast, sometimes you drop off in some deep spots, and you really got to battle. But you usually start about 4 wide, and you make 2 laps for a heat race. And then the main race is everybody that's won up to that point, like a bracket system, races together. Sometimes it's 5, 6, 8 people in the pit at a time, and that one's 3 laps. But it's literally about a minute and a half long of racing, and it's as hard as you can go in 4 foot of water.
Well, and my question is on that, like, it's got to be frustrating if your first heat, great, right? Because the mud's not turned up good. And then you think, I mean, how many heats are you running? And then are you running different classes? Because by the time your larger class comes in, is shit all torn up to where you can't run.
Yeah, you're 100% right, because you're running in water, in mud.
Right.
And so from heat 1 to the final heat for where the pro guys run, where we were running, it's completely different. So we would run multiple classes. We would run like some entry-level classes on smaller bikes to kind of memorize the pit, getting ready for our pro-level racing. But you're exactly right. Like, by the end, the water's 6 foot deep. You're barely.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah, I'm just thinking like what I know from it.
Yeah, you're barely keeping the quad above water, and like there's ruts everywhere. So towards the end, it's a freaking battle. And I guess the tough part about mud racing was in a minute and a half, you make one mistake, that's over. Well, now in like the top tier of racing, which is like desert racing, you can make a mistake and you can make that time up in 6, 7, 8 hours. And so for me, it's like a true art of racing and a driver's sport of like, everybody's going to make mistakes along the way.
Yeah.
But can you recover, and can you make that time back up? Can you push a little bit harder to catch back up to those dudes? So that's why now that we've gone into long distance desert racing, I freaking love that, dude. Love it.
I got some more questions about the mud racing.
Yeah.
Then we'll go to the desert.
Yeah, let's keep going.
I'm interested. So, did you start racing quads and then go to side-by-sides in mud racing?
I started the other way. I started in side-by-sides
Really?
and transitioned to quads.
And so is quad like the way to go in mud racing? Is it just
it's wilder for sure.
Easier to maneuver, I guess, but
yeah, it's a little easier, but it's wilder. Like you'll have tire marks up your back from other guys because we're going water wheeling and literally battling fender to fender.
Yeah.
And what everybody knew about me and Shane Dowden, which was the guy on my race team, because it was just the two of us at the time, is we would tear a car up. We would tear our bikes up. So they knew not to get too close to us because we would get wild.
Yeah.
And so if they slowed down in front of us, that was traction for us.
They knew they were going to run up.
Oh, we were tearing fenders off, dog. It did not matter. And so the quads were, I would say, more exciting. The UTVs were a little slow and like it was a battle of attrition.
Yeah.
Where the quads, it was just a freaking party in the pit.
I remember this is the peak of me doing, active in that community is when Brute Force came out.
Oh, yeah.
That was the shit.
That was a big bore 4-wheel-drive
When
bike.
they came out with that thing, it was like, dude, if you had one, man, it was game on. And then it completely transitioned after that. But I just remember that happening. And I was just like,
dude,
man,
you've been through the whole process.
The early age. I was in the early age.
The 300s to the Honda
the 4-tracks.
450s to whenever the Brute Forces come out. And that's when it really went to... It transitioned from hunting rigs and going mud riding on the same rig to they were fully built, high horsepower, big motor mud rigs. The Brute Forces, the Outlanders, the Renegades, the Rincon.
Man, we had my buddy had one of those. I didn't. My buddy had one to go over there, dude. You could. I mean, as soon as you gassed on it, you were in the air.
Dude, and what's crazy
Brute
is
Force too.
What you saw, like in that transition, if you came and rode one of my race cars with me, which we take people for rides all the time.
Oh, dude, I'm down.
It's another level.
I'm
Our
down.
cars will run 100 miles an hour.
I'm down.
We can run through whoops that are 4 foot deep at 85 or 90.
Hell yeah.
The cars are unbelievable now. But it's what you experience from a Honda 300 to a Brute Force 750. There was no comparison, right?
Oh, yeah.
Side by sides, it's made at least that jump. Maybe more than that.
From like a Razor to where you're
exactly.
at now. Yeah.
To present day, these cars are freaking incredible. The car that I race, dude, is unbelievable.
And are you doing all your you guys doing your all? I know you're doing all your suspension. All you doing all the mechanic work too. Everything, like
everything,
all the way down to the block.
That's what shocks everybody. Is our little shop is right here in Shreveport, and so we built.
I remember y'all on. Are you still? Y'all were on Mansfield Road.
No,
that was the other one. Never mind. Yeah.
Oh,
Cat Boss.
Yeah.
That wasn't. Yeah, that's right.
And he was mainly mud on.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So, but yeah, that's what surprised everybody is our shop here in Louisiana. We do all the wiring on the cars, all the sheet metal work, all the chassis work, design our own suspension. It's a turnkey car. So like you just come pick it up, ready to pull up to the start line. And we got them built for rock racing, like King of the Hammers. We got it built for short course, like these dirt track type races, and then we got it built for desert race. We build a different chassis for everything.
That's insane. It's just insane. How do you test that here? How do you test the desert stuff here?
That's a tough part, dude. Is running down levees and stuff. Everybody asks that.
Yeah, but what about the air dynamic? Like how does that work?
We get out on the highway.
Well, you're fuel injected now.
Yeah,
so it don't matter. I'm thinking like carbs and stuff.
Oh, God, no, bro, that's old technology.
That's old school right there. Yeah.
Now we got O2 sensors, and they update. It doesn't matter the elevation. So they'll run a little crappier when we get up at like 8,000 foot, but it's fuel injected, so it just adjusts itself. Yeah. But suspension wise, like there's no way for us to test.
Yeah, we don't have any soft. We don't have soft terrain.
No,
I mean, we have mud or we have clay.
Yeah, and so the strategy we typically do is at the beginning of every race season, I take a week and I go out west and I test with all the companies that sponsor me. So like Fox Shocks, I test with them.
Dude, I remember those came out. Dude.
Oh yeah,
God, they're awesome too,
bro. And they're like trophy truck shocks on our car now. They're ridiculous. And so shock testing, tuning, clutch tuning, like all of that stuff, I do in a week at the beginning of the season. And then throughout the year, like I've been doing it long enough, I know like what I don't like, if I need some more dampening, if I need some more rebound. So between races, I'll make little adjustments. But once I get my car dialed, that week of testing, I don't have to change it anymore.
Yeah.
There's little things I like to change for my preferences, like maybe steering wheel position or seating position. But overall, after we build a car, and we tested that first time, like it's ready for a season of racing.
That's insane to think about because I remember growing up in the dirt track days. Your dad, my dad.
Oh yeah.
So my dad ran limited late models.
Oh yeah.
But he didn't have enough money to have one. He ran somebody else's, and then he finally got enough sponsor to get his own. But he only lasted like 2 years in it. But yeah, man, I mean, they tore shit up. It was like a constant adjustment every single race, and then hoping someone didn't run you in the wall and wreck you out, and that was a whole culture right there, man.
And it's the same thing for us, but it's not necessarily like you're worried about somebody running into you because those guys are racing. Dirt trackers are racing door to door.
Yeah, you have a lot of room and a lot of time.
Yes,
so you can be patient, make your moves strategically. That's another question. So, like, how do you strategically plan your race? So you're running that many hours. How many total miles are you running?
So like this one we just finished was 400 miles. It was 9 hours, 400 miles.
And what's your average speed in that terrain?
I'm not good at math, but typically depending on the race, we're anywhere from 50 to 65 average speed.
So you're running your RPMs around like what?
On that
anywhere
car,
from 3
like,
to 5,000?
No, these cars are like 7 to 8,000.
Okay, so a little higher.
They're screaming now.
Gotcha.
Yeah, like these cars are screaming now. But when you average that speed, like sometimes we're running 100 miles an hour, and sometimes when we get in the really technical stuff, you'll be doing like 15 to 20 miles an hour. So it varies drastically during these races.
And that makes a big deal because, I mean, it's a chess match.
Yes.
You know, when you get in those areas, you go too hard, you're going to tear your shit up, you're done.
That's the risk.
Go too slow, then you may get, and then same thing. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense.
That's the risk. Like when you were talking about your dad and them racing door to door and tearing the cars up by somebody hitting them. For us, it's like if you hit a rock and you tear the front corner off the car, your day's over. Or if like you get out of the wash and you get crossed up, swapping ends, and you barrel roll the car, your day's over. So the dynamic is so different that it's really man versus machine versus environment. And so when we're running 75 and 80 through these whoops, like you'll start swapping ends and you'll be hand over hand, like trying to get the car straightened out.
And that's different too, because I've only driven a side by side like at some rides or whatever. I don't even have a side by side. But I was a quad guy, and it's so much easier to maneuver those, especially in whoops. Like you just lean back and hit the gas.
Yes.
Same thing if you're water skimming or something.
Exact same.
But with this stuff, it's got to be a lot more complicated.
It can get out of whack real quick.
Yeah.
And with our racing, there's 10,000 opportunities for something to go wrong, and it only takes one. Is the tough part. So that's really the dynamic of it. It's like, only a few people know that before I raced professionally, I cage fought. And so
I did too. That's how we probably know each other because you know Andrea and Tony and all those people. Yeah, we all used to train together. So I probably
of course I trained at Donnie's gym for.
Oh, so did I. That's how I know you. Shit.
Yeah.
It's been that long. Yeah, dude. Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
Yes,
God,
yes. I was young, bro. Yeah, I started there. I started there when Andrea and Tony started.
That's right because I was there the first day Andrea came in, and so
I was there.
Dude, what a small world!
Holy
that's
shit!
why
I didn't know that.
That's why I recognize.
Why did I? I don't know why I didn't know that. I guess because I haven't talked to anybody about it.
Yeah.
Holy shit!
So before I raced, I did cage fighting, and to me that was like the purest form of competition. It's 1v1, right?
Yes.
And in all that fighting and rolling and jiu-jitsu and kickboxing, like it only takes one time to get clipped.
Yep.
And so when I quit doing the fighting and stuff and I went in, that's what racing was for me. It was the same thing. It was 10,000 opportunities for something to go bad, and it only took one to get clipped. But if you could do it a little better than the guy you were against, you got it.
Yeah, that's a good analogy because people don't think about that. You could be the best in the world, but if you catch that one shot,
one time,
I mean, you could just one little minute mistake over with. Could end your career, could change your mindset to where you don't perform better later on. Like,
of course.
So that's that's so crazy, man. I cannot believe I knew I recognized your face somewhere, but man, I just like you're in a whole different element now, you know, and I guess I just didn't put two and two together. Yeah. That is insane, man. But yeah,
but that's the perspective that I look at it. Like, you know, because you trained and you fought with us.
I do, like, now I'm in CrossFit.
Yeah.
And it's something my wife and I can, and she's competing at elite level right now. We can do, but that's how I met her, was through fighting. She did mixed martial arts as well and boxing. And now it's like the same thing for me. Yeah. So what you're doing with your racing is what I'm doing with the CrossFit thing now. I'm kind of filling my void. Yeah. Because I felt like I had a void, but I also knew I was in oil and gas at the time. I was working a full-time job. I could only train 2-3 times a week. So when I was fighting, if I would compete and I would lose, I'm like, well, shit, this guy's doing it for a living.
Of course.
I'm doing it for a hobby, you know, and it kind of fills my void now with competitive, you know, not having that competitive, you know, thing going on all the time.
Yeah, man, which I think is so important, dude. You know, if it wasn't racing for me and it wasn't cage fighting for me, I would be doing, like, I do a small amount of CrossFit too. And it does give me, in between the races, it gives me that, because you're working out against the guy sitting beside you.
You're also beating yourself. Them. It's two things, right? It's like you're competing against them, but at the same time, every time you go in, you're doing a little bit better than you did before. Yeah. And you want to quit the whole fucking time. I want to quit the whole time. Like every time I turn around, I'm midway through a workout. Like yesterday we did one. I was telling him about it earlier. We did one yesterday, and we did like we did a half-mile run, came back, did some burpees, some devil press, some pull-ups, and some more burpees. Then went and took off running 2 miles with a tire. Came back, did some Atlas throws, some javelin.
Did I see y'all running down the side of Airline yesterday afternoon? Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was throwing stuff out the window at y'all.
It wasn't Airline, no. It wasn't us. We were on Brownlee. We were coming through.
That's
Brownlee.
where I live right there in Brownlee.
Yeah,
that's where
that's where it was.
On the
that was us with tires, looking like idiots, bro.
Bro, just making fun of y'all the whole time. But it fills that void, like it's that.
It does, because you want to quit the whole time.
Oh, the whole time. That's what racing is, dude. Especially when you're 6-8 hours in. You know, at the 8-hour mark is like I go physically deaf. I can't hear anymore, and so
it's that loud.
It's just the drone of the car. I have a co-driver with me, and he calls every turn.
I didn't know that.
Every straightaway, every danger.
Okay.
And so he's in my ear the whole time. It's the whoa of the car. And at the 8-hour mark, I stop being able to physically hear things. And like he'll shout at me, and for a time, I'm like, I can shake the cobwebs out, and I can hear again. But it goes away. And I don't know. It's not that I go deaf. It's that my mind doesn't process what's coming through.
So, yeah, I mean, you can't listen to music or nothing.
No.
You just have to be in there and listen to them. You can't take your mind off of it at all, I guess.
But at 8 hours, that cognitive skill of listening goes away. And it's uncontrollable. It's like you in your workouts. Like when you get to that physical fatigue, and, you know, I'm good buddies with Cowboy Cerrone, the UFC fighter.
I was going to bring that up, too.
And he talks about that. When you get to that physical fatigue and that breaking point, that's what's so crucial about being in good physical shape, especially doing what you do and what Cowboy does, is it's uncontrollable. You might want to fight back. You might want to do another rep. There's not doing another rep.
Yeah.
Your body physically won't allow it. That's what happens to me in the race car whenever it comes to hearing at the 8-hour mark.
That's insane. Mm-hmm. I didn't even know that. So, like, how does that work? How do you prep for these? Like stamina wise and just the grueling, taking the, I mean, it's you have to be so beat. Like you just finished one, what, a day ago, 2 days ago?
2 days ago.
Yeah. I mean, you got to be beat down. I'm sure you're used to it now, but I mean, but still, like your body, like just taking every single bump, every single, jar and.
And you don't get used to it. I'm still peeing blood after that. So it was a 9-hour race. Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Dude.
And it was 2 days ago. And so that.
How did you do?
I did great until I didn't do great.
Okay. What happened?
We started 30th off the line and ran everybody down.
How does that work? Is it qualifying?
No, on this one is random draw. It was
so
everybody
that
goes
screws you
together.
from the jump.
So usually we qualify really well, and a lot of races, big races, are qualifying. This one was just completely random draw. You sign up, you put your name in the hat, they pick them, and that's where you start. So we started I think 27th, and so it was a four lap, 100-mile per lap race. So it was 400 total miles. By the end of lap 2, we had caught first place. So we were in second, could physically see first place. So going into that we ran that whole lap, just kind of paced him to try to see what his pace was so we didn't tear the car up. Going into the last lap, we were 4 minutes down off of the leader. I could still see his dust when we were coming through sections. And so my pit crew told me you're 4 minutes down. And so from there to about mile 50, we made up a minute and a half. And so I was like, all right, got you, dog. I know what your pace is. That's it. I got you. And so we started the hard push in the last 50 miles of the race. And 20 miles from finish, we broke a ball joint.
Oh.
And so when we did, it tore the whole front corner off the car.
And that was a wrap.
That was a wrap.
Okay, I didn't know. I saw the rankings, and I was just like, man, I didn't know how he did. But you won last year, didn't you?
We won 2 years in a row.
Yeah.
And so that was actually crazy part about this race is the Mint 400 is like what you would consider the most prestigious race in the U.S.
Right.
The most prestigious off-road. And so we've won it 3 times, and we're the only UTV team to ever win it 3 times.
That's an achievement in itself right there.
Only UTV team to win it back-to-back, because I won it in 21 and I won it last year.
And you would have won it this year too.
And we were on our way to win it this year. So last year we set a bunch of records because we were the only teams to do that. We were the first team to ever do it in under 8 hours. And then so this year we were on track to set even more records.
What caused the ball joint issue?
Freaking 400 miles of thrash in the car. Yeah. Thrash in the car. And everything was brand new in the car when we started the race. We've never had that failure before. And it's just you bend that wire so far, and at some point that wire's going to break. Yeah. And we did turn it up for the last lap. We really tried to take care of the car, but it's just the race is so rough. It's the most prestigious for a reason. It's so freaking rough.
Yeah, and that's what's interesting about the rankings and that, and how you land, because you can not finish and still be a higher place than the other people who didn't finish.
I know, dude.
A previous 20 miles ahead of you.
I know,
but that's what's crazy to me about that whole thing.
Well, that's what we had to sit there and watch, because we were second physical, and I could see first place. Mm-hmm. And we literally had to sit there on the side of the track while the next 30, 40, 50 cars passed us. And so we went from going to win the race to everybody else that even finished beat us.
Really?
And so it's tough, man. It's tough. It's tough.
Dang.
But everybody knows that I'm going to win it or I'm going to crash a car. And I'm willing to do either. It doesn't bother me to do either one.
Yeah.
So, I mentioned the mullet and stuff earlier. One thing that I learned early on, it was to be memorable. And the reason I learned that was in mud racing. I don't know if you remember. I had this lime green and black side by side that everybody. Oh,
everyone knew it. I remember that thing.
Tropicana.
Yeah.
So it would fully built motor, nitrous, tons of nitrous, and it would wheelie off the line. And I won. I won tons of races in that car. Nobody ever remembers those wins. Nobody remembers that championship. They only remember the weekend at River Run when I hit the back straight on the nitrous, skimmed that hole, and I turned too early and flipped that thing end over end. So all people ever remember about my race career in that mud bike was, you remember that time you freaking cartwheeled Tropicana in the mud pit? And I realized something then. I was like, if you're not going to win, you got to make sure people remember you. Or on your way to winning, make sure they do. It's like you when you were fighting. Like, everybody wants to see the head kick knockout.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no one wants to see the get on the ground, transition to an arm triangle. They want to see a highlight reel.
Who's the most popular fighters that lived? It's the Anderson Silvas, the Chuck Liddells, the Cowboy Cerrones. They didn't come to choke nobody, dog.
Yeah.
They was trying to sleep people.
Yep.
And so I learned that early on, and now I realize there's no value to crashing a car. So I run on that ragged edge of I'm right at the verge of crashing all the time. But if I don't crash, I'm going to win.
Yeah. That's crazy, man. I can't I just can't. I'm still blown away the fact that I didn't put the two together from Mafia, man. That's crazy to me. I don't know why. I guess because, like I said, 2 different worlds now. It's completely separate. Well, how's Cowboy, man? He's retired, man.
This dude, yeah, he's funny, man. You know, he
raced. He's racing now.
Yeah, we built him a race car, and that's all he wants to do now.
Because he was raced a class or 2 under you or something. Yeah.
Yes, so he and I race every race together now, and he races the class just below mine. So he races like the unlimited trophy class.
Got you.
And so that's all he wants to do now. Is now that he give up, it's like we talked about the fighting transition.
Yes, it's taking
for him. It's still his battle against nobody but himself.
Yeah,
you know what I mean, or 1v1 type battle. It's him against the elements, him against the car. That's all he wants to do now. Is he wants to let's meet up here and let's go race this race. And I'm like, but the thing with him is he had an amazing career.
Yeah.
You know, one of the longest.
Yeah.
He's been very successful. He's got plenty of money and plenty of time.
Yeah.
And my boy just wants to have fun, dog. And so today, called me 3 times. Hey, you gonna meet up this weekend and go race? I'm like, no, dude, I can't do that. He's like, all right, I'll call you after a while. He would call me back with something else. You want to go this weekend to hog hunting in Texas, the half inch? No, Cowboy, I don't want to do it. All right, I'll call you in a little while. And dude, that's just what he does, man.
Somebody was telling me that him and Mike, is it Michael Daniel?
Yeah,
that's one of my buddies, man.
Yeah. Mikey's
another one of my buddies was telling me, he's like, yeah, man, he was hog hunting out there with Michael not too long ago. I was like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah, Mikey took us all out with Lena, that pro shooter girl, that Lena Muslik, stud world champion shooter. So Mikey freaking took me, Cowboy, and Lena out hog hunting just a month or 2 ago.
Nice.
And so all that boy wants to do is have fun, man. Yeah. And now, you know, he fought for so long in USADA or whatever, the drug commission. He's never failed a drug test. He took more drug tests than any person in the UFC ever. I think it was 52 drug tests. He never failed one. And now my boy Juice is out of his brain.
Bet. Why not?
That's what he said. He said, dog, this is what I've been looking for.
Yeah, I saw some pictures of him, and I've never met Cowboy in person. I just know people that know him, and like you know him. But I saw some pictures. Like, yeah, he's got some size.
Bro, I was at his retirement fight. He fought at 155.
I saw that fight. It was amazing. Just to see that, like, put the hat down and the whole thing. Man,
the whole thing.
It's got to be emotional. Like,
and I didn't know he was retiring. And so,
he didn't tell you?
No, his last 3 fights, he brought me out to just be there with him and his family and stuff. And so I went to the last 2 of his fights. One of them got canceled, and so he got transitioned into the last fight. And so he called me. He's like, hey man, I got a fight, and this is the date. I was like, bro, I can't no more. I've come out 2 or 3 times now. Like, I've seen you fight. He was at fight number 49. I was like, you still got 50. Like, I'm gonna wait. I can't. He's like, nah, man, I need you to come out. And I was like, man, why do you keep saying that? He's like, dude, I need you here. I was like, cool, I'll freaking come, dog. I got you. And so I didn't know. He didn't tell me before. When he was walking out to the cage, me, his wife, and his 2 little boys met him right there for him to tell them hello. And he looked at me and gave me that head nod. And, man, I still got the video of it, dude. And I realized then, I was like, this is it. Oh, man, this is it. So he got in there and fought, Jim Miller, which was – he was fighting that guy for the most wins in the UFC history. Mm-hmm. Whoever won that one had the most wins in UFC history. Yeah. Unfortunately, he lost that fight, but then he started taking his hat off, take his gloves off, and I kind of figured it out when you told me I have to be there. You cannot miss this fight. And he gave me the head nod when he walked in the ring. I thought, yeah, man, this is the one.
He's had such a amazing career, man, and so many wins and so many highlight reels, and I mean what he did in WEC before he went to UFC, and just man.
And I aspire to be that in racing. I like surrounding myself with people like that, with people like you that are getting out there and like this podcast, man, and just putting yourself out there and doing what other people are. I like surrounding myself with people like that because it helps me want to be better at what I do or a better person in general.
It is interesting how that works. Like as you grow and like lose the ego and lose the whatever thing you think you need to be, and you start kind of going down that path, you somehow just attract other people that do that too. Yeah. It's really weird how that works.
Man, and it brings you up. It's that, iron sharpens iron type thing, And I was trying to be so careful who I put myself around because of that. with racing, if you surround yourself with people that you outrun all the time, you're only going to be as fast as that fastest guy.
It's like if you're the tough guy beating everybody up at the gym.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Same thing. Yeah. If you're the toughest guy at the gym, you're never going to get better.
No.
You need to be bringing people in that freaking stomp you, and that's going to make you better, you know? And so me and Cowboy, that's why we get along so good. He's accomplished quite a bit more than me in his genre, which was fighting. And he's a very successful businessman and very, very smart at marketing himself. But he's not where I am in racing. And so he's got where I want to be. But unknowingly, whenever we met, I am where he wants to be.
Exactly.
And so we mesh well because I force him to be faster because I push him so hard. But also he puts me in spots to make me better and more successful because of what he's been through.
Hell yeah. That's a good analogy. It makes sense. So parts wise, what are we doing on, so I remember when we were racing and like you only had like a handful of exhaust systems you could run. But I didn't have a fuel injected bike. I'm just thinking about that.
Oh, you had an HMF though.
White Brothers.
Oh, really? Everybody had a White Brothers.
Yeah, man. White Brothers.
Had a sport quad.
FMF, HMF.
For those the dogs.
Yeah, dude.
They was the dogs.
What kind of setup do you run on these things now? Like,
everybody makes it. So Borla, the sports car exhaust.
You're putting that. What type of exhaust are you running?
So we run a custom built exhaust.
So you build your own.
It's lightest and
like
fastest.
Aircraft aluminum.
Yeah. It's all like super thin stainless, 304 stainless, and we TIG weld it all and all that.
Well, how does that work? Is that like, are you trying to get your like rig as light as possible? Mm-hmm. Okay.
So anything.
Is that like for numerous reasons, like fuel consumption?
Yep.
Okay.
Speed,
it's suspension.
Yes. It's easier on parts.
Tires because you less weight.
Yes. You can go faster. So even things like shaving tires down, like taking brand new tires and shave, because for me, we race on the highest level, so I can't leave anything to chance. So every single race, my car gets torn down and completely new drive lines, all new tires, wheels, brakes, ball joints, wheel bearings, knuckles, steering components, everything's
all the
new.
way down the frame, basically.
Everything's new. The only thing we don't change is motor, transmission, and wiring.
When's your next big race?
I have one in 1 month.
So you have a month to completely tear that bike down and reassemble it all around running the business.
Yes.
That's a lot.
Well, fortunately for me, I have a crew chief. And so everything that I dabble in, I run it exactly like a business. And so, I have sponsors. I don't take any money out of my race program, not one penny. I put it all back into my racing program. But for me, that's helped building the S3 brand, the company that we have. And so it's an investment for me. There's monetary value because I get to do what I love. I race, and I freaking love that. So that's like giving me $1 million a year. I get to race for free, like as a profession. I love it.
Yeah, if you think about it, why not?
And so that's exciting for me. And so the racing, I run like a business. I put every dollar back in there. So I have a crew chief that whenever we get back, like we go over any issues that we had, what we want to do differently, what we want to change on the car, and he does it. And so while I'm running the businesses and working, he's getting the car ready.
Okay. What kind of tires are you running these days?
I run Maxxis. I run Maxxis brand tire. Yep. And so 32s and Maxxis is the big company.
What style?
It's like an all-terrain. They kind of look like Toyo MTs a little bit. And so it's almost like a truck tire tread.
How large is it?
32s.
So running 32s on like a 15-inch?
Yeah, 15-inch wheels.
Okay,
yeah.
Gotcha.
That's what's big now because it clears your brakes and everything. So our cars, like we build a lot of chassis. We build like 20 chassis a year for customers all over the world. And it's because all of our stuff is so thought out. So even like the wheels, we only use 15-inch wheels or bigger because it has to have enough room to clear the brake caliper to where rocks can't get in between there. But also you reduce the amount of rubber you're using, and whenever you use spoked wheels, it lightens it up by using less tire rubber. And so like, dude, my cars are so methodically built.
That's insane to think about. Man, I'm a gearhead, dude. I build vehicles, buy and sell vehicles, and I love it now. But like, it's always fun to build something like we have a Jeep we just built, like an LJ.
I love Jeeps.
An 04.
Oh, dude, that's the holy grail.
Oh, it's legit.
I want one.
You need to
so
check it out.
bad.
It's legit, but it's not like sitting on. It's just got a small like 3.5-inch lift with 33s. It's not like sitting on like a crazy rock crawling suspension.
Like mine.
Yeah, like yours.
Carry 1 tons and 42-inch.
Yeah, man, we're not doing anything like that yet. I'm not in that market. I got to build me a shop first.
Yeah,
give me a shop, then I can start building all the things I want.
Somewhere
you know
to
what
work
I mean?
on stuff.
I just have a mall crawler right now. A little nicer than mall crawler.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I think that I think it's crazy because I've never really until I'm sitting right here and talking to you about it. I didn't realize how much that I know, and I still don't know a lot. But it's just funny to past life of doing those things all the time and learning what breaks and stuff like that. I ran Maxxis. I can't remember what tires I used to run on that Z400.
Oh, no. Maxxis would have been like whole shots or something.
Whole shots.
Yeah.
Yep. Ran whole shots on those. Yeah. And I love those tires, man. It's crazy. And
that technology has come so far. So like we have a specific tire we run in the rocks that's a sticky compound. And so they're literally purpose-built rocks. They're only good for one race because they're worn completely out after one race.
So you're doing rock stuff too?
Yeah, King of the Hammers. We do it one time.
Okay, so how does that work?
Oof, that's just
it's a climb thing or like what is this? Is this not like a Jeep climb thing, right?
Yeah, it's like that. But it's a mixture between like really slow technical rock crawling and desert racing.
Okay, so it's not this straight uphill shit.
Oh, yeah.
It is?
Heck yeah. Dude, the gnarliest rock gardens, rocks as big as this room that you're weaving between. Super steep, and like the risk versus reward is terrible.
And so you're driving in these?
Yeah. So
what
it's
the hell's wrong with you, man?
A lot of things. A freaking lot of things, dog. But it's like the worst of the worst. So you have to run some desert section, get from obstacle to obstacle, but when you get there, it's like shift back to low range, all lockers on, and you're doing like 5 miles an hour. People are flipped over everywhere. You have to run over their rigs to keep going if somebody flips. Like, it's insane.
You're running a lot larger tire in this.
We run 35s on
35s
those. And wides.
bead-locks.
Full bead locks. And they're sticky competition compound. And like, dude, it's the technology for off-road racing since you've done it is like F1 compared. So like,
I can only imagine. Just seeing what technology's done in our phones from there to then, I can only imagine what's happened.
Dude, we have certain compound tires we run for certain races. We have certain run flat systems we run depending on how many miles we're going to drive. We've got.
Oh, so you run run flats on these, on like the one you just finished?
Yeah, depending on what race it is, I run run flat systems, and so. Dude,
so you're not carrying like a spare. You don't have time.
We do carry a spare, but we don't get out and change it. We run it to the pits.
Okay.
So I've been in situations to where we had to get out and change it.
What's the scenario where you have to do that?
So when we've hit,
how long is one lap?
That lap specifically is 50 miles.
Okay,
100 miles.
100-mile lap.
So,
you have 4.
On average, you have pit stops in between there, and pit stops are about every 50 to 70 miles.
And so you have to have a team member at every pit stop.
You do.
That's crazy to think about.
I have 3 pit crews that come with me.
Okay.
And they carry, each chase truck has tires, wheels, axles, shocks, suspension parts, and we can swap anything in the middle of a race. It's no problem. Now, granted, when you have to do that, like you're out of a race, you're only finishing for points.
Yeah.
But like with tire changes, I try to stretch it as far as I can. But if you get 5 miles in and hit a rock and get a flat and you still got 45 miles to go, that tire ain't going to last.
Right.
So we literally run it until it's wheel on the ground. And then it's like, all right, we have to get out and change it. So we've got full tool bag, a jack, an off-road jack on the car, spare tire, so we can change it in under 3 minutes. And so it's co-driver gets out, swaps the tire, gets back in, and I'm driving before he's ever completely in the car.
What are you eating, man? Because my ass eats like every 2 hours, so I wouldn't make it.
That's a big part. You asked earlier about preparation and stuff.
Yeah.
About a month out from races, I start doing intermittent fasting.
That helps. Yeah, that helps.
So I only have 1 meal a day. And I usually try to target the last half of the day for my meals. What's
the race window? So from like start to finish, like does it start midday and then ends?
Not typically. Okay. Usually it starts about 7 a.m.
Okay.
And it goes through the whole day. And so we usually finish 4, 5, 3 in the afternoon.
So you're just running. Yeah, okay.
So if I train my body about a month out to have a meal at 7 o'clock at night, then for me, I don't have to eat during the race. And so I do carry Cliff Bars. We tape them on the inside of the roof and inside of the doors. And so when we get to certain sections where it's like long lake beds, like 4 or 5 miles, I'll tear one off, hand it to my co-driver. He opens it and gives it to me piece by piece. And so I do stuff to try to keep at peak performance, but all my stuff is done like fighting. It's one in the gym.
Yeah.
So I start a month in advance acclimating my body to intermittent fasting. And usually I try to drink a gallon of water a day. That week before, like I shut that off.
Yeah, because you don't want to be having to piss every hour. Yeah,
exactly. I don't want to pee a lot, and I don't want to have a need for water. You know how it is whenever you're cutting weight, you can drink a ton of water, and your body dumps it. Well, if you teach your body to do that, it stays flushed out.
Yes.
Well, pre-race, like week out from a race, I stop drinking a gallon of water so my body starts retaining water so I don't get dehydrated. Because if I drink a gallon of water a day and then go into a 10-hour race and I drink, a liter of water, I'm going to be dehydrated and my head's going to hurt and I can't focus. So I got to train my body for that.
Yeah. Damn. That's a lot, man. It's a lot.
People are not doing that nowadays. Like, we're one of the few teams that are doing that.
Well, that's a good thing, though. But just a competitive edge, right?
Mm-hmm. But that's why we're at the top of the heap right now.
So how's this series work? So on the flow chart. So like, are you racing and like points wise? Where are you at right now?
I'm second in points right now.
Second in points, and this is the United States.
Yes. Yes, it's like the biggest series. So there's a lot of different series, but this is the biggest series that we race.
What series is this?
It's called Best in the Desert.
Okay, and how many racers are in it?
In my class, there's about 60 in the point series, 60 to 70 in the point series, and there's 8 races a year, and one of them is a drop race.
Okay.
So it's like a normal like supercross season, quad racing season. There's 8 races with one drop race.
Okay.
And so you pick the drop race. It's whichever your worst race was falls out, and they total points.
Is that going to be this one, you think?
Yeah. Unfortunately,
that's a good thing to be able to have that though, in case you don't have any other issues moving forward.
But the tough part is, like, you never want your drop race to be the beginning of the season.
No,
I'm only 2 races in, and I've already got to burn my drop race.
Right.
And so now I can't make any mistakes for the rest of the year.
You can't mess up.
Not if I want to win the championship.
So
I can't.
What I got off I started talking about exhaust, and I got off the parts thing. So walk me through what parts you're using, what sponsors, because because I'm a gearhead and I'm a nerd about these things. And if people are listening, watching the board, I'm sorry, but I just want to know. Of
course. So, sponsors, and I'm sure with the podcast, sponsors is a dicey thing because they like plugs. They like return on investment.
Right.
So if I try to focus my sponsorship towards consumables and technology. And
that's a good point. That way you're not backed into a corner with a product that you don't like.
Correct.
Or like a part you don't like.
Correct. So like air filters, not really a technology, not really proprietary. You just swap an air filter, it's $15. And so when you start getting into things like tires, and I only run one set of tires one time and throw them away, that means I have to have 50 tires for the season between all the different races that I do. So like Maxxis Tires sponsors me, and I get 68 tires a season. And so that's for desert racing, short course racing, rock racing, any combination of. But that's tremendous. Can you imagine us having to buy 50,
that's
60 tires a year?
These are run flats.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are high dollar tires.
Not cheap.
$400 or $500 a piece?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so they're super expensive. Same thing with wheels. Wheels, you bust one about every 2 races. You'll have a busted wheel or one that's like, man, we shouldn't run this one again. So I get a wheel sponsor.
What kind of wheels are you running?
I run KMCs.
KMC's good.
And so they're them and, Method and Raceline are kind of the top of the line right now. And KMC's been with me since early on, and so I've stuck to them. Fox shocks, that's suspension is they say suspension is free speed or free horsepower. And so you can have the highest horsepower car in the series, but if your shocks won't let you drive fast, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And so that's an example of money spent on, sponsorship pointed towards technology.
Yeah.
Because I get unlimited training sessions with Fox. I get unlimited testing sessions, shock rebuilds. So for me, that was a huge sponsor. Those dudes are experts at what they do at a technology that I'm not great at. So that was a huge impact on my racing career. You know what I mean? Is getting in with Fox. And the biggest shock company in the world is Fox. And so tuning companies, like we're sponsored by a tuning company, Evo Power Sports.
That was the next thing I was going to ask you about dyno and with, programmers and stuff being EFI.
It's a lot huge different now. Yeah. Because we can't mess with the motor and transmission. It's a spec class.
That was the next thing I was going to ask is what are the restrictions?
It's a pro production class.
Okay.
And the OEMs are really big into this to where, like trophy trucks and stuff, they're not really sponsored by Ford and Chevy and Toyota because it's so far from a regular pickup truck. They don't care.
Oh, you're running like Toyota, Nissan, stuff like that.
Right. And so what we do, they want us to keep it really close to a production vehicle. Like it needs to look the same. It needs to have a lot of the factory parts on it. And that keeps the OEMs really involved, which the OEMs are the big sponsors.
Right.
Are the big money sponsors. And so, for that class, because I run pro production, it's you have to leave it mostly stock. It's stock motor, stock transmission, stock turbo, things like that. And so it's a driver's class. So if you can pick up some horsepower with with suspension tuning, if you can pick up some horsepower with lightened tires and wheels, if you can run a few less parts on your car, you can be faster than a guy that has the same motor and transmission.
That's pretty much all the parts you're running.
Yeah. That's a big people. I've got sponsored seats, sponsored harnesses, other little sponsored parts, but the really big consumable parts are going to be those guys.
Yeah.
The tires, the wheels, the shocks, things like that. That you really just you eat them up. You know what I mean?
I bet. Well, on suspension, so like other than your shocks, like your linkages and stuff like that, what's that look like these days?
So, dude, it's like freaking trophy truck suspension now. Okay. So if you held like our suspension arms, because we run what's called like a trailing arm system. So instead of a straight axle, we have independent suspension.
Right.
And the rear is a trailing arm as big as this table now.
Really?
So we build those in-house.
Okay.
We build all of our own suspension. But now it's like, dude, these trailing arms are monstrous. You could literally hit a rock wide open right in the middle, and it's not going to do anything to it. It's like full steel-plated trailing arms.
And how heavy are they?
Heavy.
Yeah.
Heavy.
So that's the heaviest thing on your bike.
That's the heaviest thing on the bike. That's the tough part.
But it's worth it, right? If you go try to go light and
100%,
and something's going to screw up.
That's one of the things you can't skimp on is suspension, because if you bend a suspension arm, which you're going to smash rocks, it just is going to happen in races. You can't dodge them all. And you bend one of those, you're completely out. So there's a few things that you always want to target. It's like fighting or CrossFit. There's a few things that you can control.
Right.
How hard did you prep? What kind of shape are you in? How heavy are you lifting? And fighting is, what was your cardio like? Did you practice enough sparring? Did you roll enough jiu-jitsu? Well, for us, it's the same thing. We can control how strong that suspension is. We can control how good our radiator system is, because we can keep the car cool and we keep the car moving. And those are the important things,
Yeah.
The failure that I had this weekend, 100% out of our control.
Yeah, that's just it just happens.
It's
it is what it is.
a hard part that we don't manufacture, that we buy the best we can, and it just happened to break.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, if one of our suspension arms broke, we should have built it stronger. And
right, yeah.
We've learned that over time, is that's the things you can control, so you don't skimp on those.
Well, I didn't realize, I guess because I haven't looked into the sport, I just, kind of looked, 100,000-foot perspective.
Yep.
Like the co-driver thing, how does that work?
We're required to have a co-driver in our class.
Is that safety thing? Or okay.
Mainly. So we have a GPS system that we run off of right before the race. Like 3 days before the race, they give us GPS coordinates. That's a trail through the middle of the desert that we have to follow. And we have to hit certain checkpoints. And if you skip those checkpoints, you get disqualified.
Got you.
They're called virtual checkpoints. So they drop them on there with a computer system. And we have a tracker on the car that somehow senses location. Mm-hmm. And if you don't hit those spots, you get disqualified.
Okay.
And so my co-driver keeps me on path, following GPS, but it's also for safety, because if we turn this car over and like I got trapped and the car got on fire, like I would die for sure.
Yeah, and there's no one there. There's no one nearby or anything.
We're 100 miles from anybody. We're 50, 60 miles from civilization. So nobody could help us for hours and hours.
What's it like racing those elements versus like growing up? You know how it is here. Like, and people are listening, watching from, because everyone's nationwide looking at this. So like, it's really just muggy, dense. Humidity's extremely high here. It always is. It doesn't matter what time of year.
Yeah.
Like, you're in elements that are very dry.
Yeah.
Very hot.
Yeah.
How does that work? Like,
the toughest part is, you're in a car, strapped in, full fire suit, full helmet, engine right beside you. And so we have a race every year that's in Las Vegas, and it's about 110, and it's in August, and it's the most difficult race of the year. It's 110 outside, ambient temperature. It's 130 inside the car.
I bet.
And so that's the toughest part, is the elements inside the car of like, dude, with the motor right beside you, when you slow down and the fans are blowing and it's blowing, it's 120, 130 inside the car. The other part of it is when you get out there, dude, I'm seeing parts of the country that less than 1% of the population, a fraction of 1% of the population will ever see. I'm in the most remote parts of Arizona, Nevada, California that are no roads, no houses, no access to them. And so if you ever, and me and my co-driver do it every time, like while we're racing, and we just did it the other day at the Mint, and you take time to look past the trail that's right in front of you that you're trying not to hit, it's freaking beautiful out there, dude. We see parts of the country. We'll go through these rain-washed canyons that are 150-foot walls on both sides, and it's only 8 foot wide. And so you're just freaking ripping 70 miles an hour with 2 foot on each side of you, and it's 150 foot down in the ground. It's incredible, dude. It's incredible. Or you'll top a mountain. Like we have these goat trails that we have to run up the mountain, and once you top it, you literally can see 100 miles in every direction. And you're just like, dude, nobody will ever see this. Yeah. Ever see this. And so it's a tough part. You're definitely battling the elements. It's hot in the race car. It's dusty. You're battling in other people's dust trying to follow them. But then there's also a side of it that's like, dude, we're seeing parts of the country that
I mean, you're looking at it from a great perspective because you're right. I mean, I've never even been in that type of element other than the sand pits we used to ride in. You know what I mean? Like,
I do know.
Like other, you know what I'm talking about. But like other than that, like I've never experienced that. Aside from working in West Texas or like in the sand pits around here. So, but I can only imagine because that's just like a dry, very dusty, especially depending on. There's been rain lately or anything like that. Yeah,
man, and that's a perspective that I always try to instill on people because I have been fortunate enough, and I tell everybody I've lived 10 people's lifetimes. Yeah. So I've been to China, and I've raced over there. I've been to Mexico. I've driven for Monster Energy. I've won the biggest races in the country, and so for me, I tell people like you have to take time in the worst times to appreciate what's good about that. So it may be 130 degrees in the race car, 115 outside. We're sweating to death. But if you look around, you realize I'm in some of the most beautiful places that nobody will ever see. Yeah. And if you just focus on, God, it's hot. Man, I broke these ball joints. Dude, it's going to be a long day of racing. You miss it all. Yeah. But if you take time to look around, you realize like how lucky you are, you know? Yeah. And that's in everything, man, with you and podcasting. Like those runs in CrossFit, I'm sure are terrible.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
But you see your physical results, man, and you're like, dude, I'm healthier than I was before. And like you take that time of running where you're not talking to anybody around you and you get to run through your thoughts, man. You get to think about stuff and you put posts. Yeah. It takes those hard sacrifices to appreciate how well you've got things.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you don't ever get your ass kicked, you never appreciate a win, right? You can't. I mean, if you win all the time, it's just, and that's the thing with like any type of training, and I'm sure you know how it is, and with racing too, it's like you have to go to the depths. Yeah. The
pits, dog.
The depths, and you want to quit. Like if you're in certain scenarios, you're like, I really want to quit, and you have to decide not to. Yeah. And that's something that, it's crazy to think about, and it builds you up from there,
Dude, it does, and it creates a perspective then. Because when you've been there, dude, throwing up, running, carrying that tire.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, anything like that, man.
But, man.
Training, cutting weight, just, prepping, like, just prepping for what you're doing and then getting out there and doing it.
But if you didn't have that sacrifice, you wouldn't have the same appreciation for the victory. Because I've been through the trenches, man. In racing, dude, I've wrecked brand new cars. I've wrecked 18 miles from finish in the lead. I've crashed 18 miles from the start line. Yeah. Like I've been through the worst. So anytime we have success at a race, I look back and remember like, dude, how bad could it be? You know what I mean? How bad could it be? How lucky am I to be in this position? Because I know what it was like to be on the other side of it.
Yeah. Well, what's something that's happened that you never would expect it to happen throughout all of this?
You mean like in the moment or like overall?
Overall, man.
So I've been able to make an impression on people that I would have never been able to reach otherwise. So this, for me, this has created a platform that I can touch people, that I can have a positive influence on people that I would have never heard my voice before. And one of the biggest examples of that is you have to go on YouTube and check out the BMF Kids Camp video that we put out. And so I crossed paths with Cowboy only through racing, and that's kind of how we ran into each other. Well, now every year, Cowboy and I do a kids camp out at his BMF ranch in New Mexico.
Gotcha.
Where we put out a video and invite kids to send us letters and videos. We weed through those, and we pick 30 to 35 underprivileged kids that have nothing, that come from terrible homes. We bring them out to the ranch and teach them life lessons for a week. We teach them how to work on vehicles, how to change tires on their mom's car.
That's amazing.
How to jump start a vehicle, how to handle a gun, how to protect themselves, how to shoot a bow and arrow. How to take care of animals. We teach them all these things for a week, and then send them back home. But to answer your question, what was unexpected for me is I started racing because I freaking love competition and I love racing. And looking back now, I recognize it's been an opportunity for me to reach children, families, other racers, and set an example for them that I would have never otherwise reached without our success, without winning these races, and without the platform.
Yeah, and you don't think about that. Like you said, you just wanted to race.
Just
you don't think
wanted to
about once you get to that elite level, how much an impact you have.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
I never planned to be in this position. I know I wanted to win everything I could win, and I know I wanted to race as hard as I could. I never knew these opportunities would arise. But what's important is being a good steward of those opportunities. You have a voice with this thing. You know, you have an opportunity to set an example for people to get out there. This is a good platform for you to be a positive example. That's what I always wanted to be. Because there's something I remembered in life. I had an older brother, and he was like 4 years older than me. So when I was little, he was the freaking coolest thing to me ever.
Yeah.
And all of his friends were too. And so I tried to hang around with the pesky little brother, and I know looking back, like I got on their nerves, but my brother always let me hang around with him, which meant a lot to me. But there was friends of his that I really looked up to, and they remember specific friends of his, and I could name them to this day, and I'm not going to, that made a positive impression on me, and some that made a negative impression on me. Yeah. They may have embarrassed me. They may have called me a dork. Like they may have told me, like, get out of here, you're not. I remember those ones that made the positive impression and the ones that made negative. And I always said from that day on, I want to be the one that makes a positive impression. So when I get these opportunities on the stage, on the biggest platform, on my social media, I want to be the guy that everybody leaves with a good experience.
Man, what are you not good at, bro? You don't even drink. I was like, hey, man, do you want to drink before we started this thing? Because, look, I'm respectful. I'm not going to have a drink if you're not going to have a drink. But, sometimes I like some tequila. So, yeah, why is that? You don't drink, man. And, hey, kudos to you, man.
I come from a family of outlaws.
Got you.
And, I come from a good Christian home from my parents. Mm-hmm. And so my bloodline is not a great bloodline. It's something I'm very proud of. Yeah. But it's not, it's a devil that I don't want to dance with.
Doesn't mix well.
And from the racing and from social media, I have no chill.
Yeah.
And so if
you amplify that,
dog, bro, if I test something, I'm all in.
Yeah.
And so I'm not willing to chance it. I know my personal limitations because of my bloodline, and I know not to try that.
That's good though, man. That's good to think about. You know what I mean? Like if you, I do. I feel like I do a 0 to 100 on a lot of things, but that's one thing that I used to do in that atmosphere. Now it's just like I'll have one chill, but I don't go crazy.
And I can appreciate that. It takes some like self-evaluation, self-control to do that.
Yeah.
I don't know that I have that, so it's not something.
Well, that's good though. That's crazy to even think about, man. It's just, especially the kind of crowds you hang out with, and the industry and the world that you're in. Where everyone's partying all the time.
What's weird is now that I've made it to this point, and I've never tried alcohol. I've never tasted it. I've never had a drink, period.
Yeah.
In my entire life. Now it's kind of like an undefeated record of like.
Yeah, you don't want to screw it up now.
I don't want to mess it up.
You've made it this far. Why would you do that?
That's what I'm saying now.
Maybe on your deathbed or something, we'll take a shot.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Maybe my last day, I'm like, you know what? Hand me that bottle. Let's go, dog.
Yeah.
But I don't, like my friends do it. I don't judge anybody that does.
Yeah.
I don't, but for me now, it's an undefeated record that I try to stick to. And
I get it.
Maybe a weird, twisted thing in my mind, but it's those two things. I'm undefeated in that. I can still to this day say I've never tried it. And I think if I did, I'd live out my heritage.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I hear you. No, I got some of those. Yeah. I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Well, man, we've covered a lot. There's any final thoughts or anything you want to plug, or anything, man?
Yeah. I guess, the big thing that I always try to instill in people, in the kids for the kids camp and stuff, and with your platform is perspective, man. I've been through tough times. I went through tough times just a couple weeks ago. Or a couple of days ago. I was winning that race until I wasn't winning that race. And in that moment, whenever I'm trying to swap ball joints in the dirt, in the desert, I think, this is horrible. This is freaking horrible. I was fixing to be even more famous, even more recognizable by setting more world records in racing. And then now look at what I'm doing. But I had to take time to recognize, like, if I don't appreciate these times, the next one that I win, the next opportunity, I won't appreciate that as much. So perspective is so important, man. Is you have a platform, you have an opportunity to set an example positively or negatively for young people, for people that want a podcast, that people that want to have their voice heard. And so I always encourage people, and I always try hard to be that person that's on the positive side. Be that good guy. You know what I mean? Everybody likes to be a bad boy, and they like
man, yeah.
But when it comes down to it, and you got to put your head on the pillow at night, be that good guy.
Well, I'm glad you say that. I completely agree. And for me, it's like I just like to have conversations with people that I know are those type of people, right? So I'm glad to get to know you a little better today because I know who you are. Once you sit down with somebody past 20 or 30 minutes, you can't really BS them anymore. You know what I mean? Like you know what's up. So. I think it's important. I think it's important you said that, but I also think that's, when I try to have people on here and what I'm doing here is just really just trying to spread everyone else's word, not mine. You know what I mean? Yeah. But some people are like, oh, man, that's so cool. I'm like, yeah, but they're the cool ones. I'm just here, having the conversation.
Just facilitating that, right?
Yeah.
And I appreciate that you would take time to have me up here.
Oh, heck yeah, dude.
Now that we realize who each other were, it's been years since we crossed paths.
I know. I couldn't believe it. I'm sitting here racking my brain because I try to do 10 things at once in my head, and I'm thinking like, dude, I remember now. I remember like crazy because
it's a small world, man, for us to reconvene this many years.
I know, right?
How many, 12, 15 years maybe?
That was, man, what year was that?
It would have had to been like 08.
It was, I graduated in 07, so it was definitely 08, 09.
Yeah, it was before I started the business.
I just got into the oil field, and yeah, man.
And so...
we had some goons in there, boy.
Dog, we was goons.
Dude, I'm talking about.
We was goons.
Us, yeah, I know. Yeah, I say we. Like, I'm not anymore. I'm just over here on the sidelines. But yeah, dude, we were. And a lot of people were, man. We got it in, dude. I'm talking about all the people. I love to see people like that are still, they don't even train or do anything with it anymore, but you run into them, you're like, man, mad respect still because we've been in the trenches together.
We have. And then when it's cool to see like Tony fighting, see him fighting the UC, see Andrea do that.
Yeah.
And, it's one big thing.
Matt, Danger Chanel.
Yeah, dude, all those dudes out there just getting it, man. And that's one thing that I learned early on is, man, it's you should always be happy for those people. You should always be proud of those people. And I guess a little bit of that comes along with feeling a little bit of success that you like to see other people be successful too. You realize they're not taking bread off your table, dude. Like you can earn your own way.
Yeah.
And so when you put that work in, when you do good, and even maybe with CrossFit, when you see your partner like get one more rep than you're like, good freaking job, dog.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Good
For sure. You want to beat them during, but when you get over, you're like, mad respect.
Good job.
I'm glad you did better.
I'm happy for you.
Yeah. I'm gonna beat you next time.
I'll get you next time.
I'm gonna beat you next time.
But I like seeing like Andrea and Tony and those guys do good. That makes me happy, man. Their success is it makes me happy to see them do good. And so same thing with you, dude. Now that we cross paths again, I see you doing this, man. I'm like, dude, that's freaking awesome.
Hey, man, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. So that's a wrap, dude. Yeah. Thanks so much for coming on.
Of course, my man. Thank you for having me in.